So lately in Heroes vs Villains, I've noticed a lot of people completely failing to use their defensive toolkits as a saber user, and I figured I'd throw this guide together just to lend a hand to people who might not have played as much. And with that, you'll learn something and it'll be a little better at using saber users. This guide's mostly going to center on Rey, because in my opinion she's actually the best saber duelist, mainly due to Dash Strike, which to my knowledge is the only unblockable saber ability, I believe, and that is just a massive boon to her. It really helps in winning duels against other people like Maul and Vader. But anyway, I want to get into this. It is unscripted, so sorry if I go off on any tangents or miss anything obvious. I just prefer doing it this way because it's a bit more natural. So to start off with, I'm going to go into blocking and dodging. Now blocking is extremely useful because it also allows you to parry. As long as you've got your guard up and an enemy lightsaber user attacks you, then they'll be temporarily stunned, and you'll be able to punish them with exactly 2 basic strikes. I think it's 2 anyway. I'm not sure if it differs from hero to hero, but in Rey's case, you're able to safely get in 2 hits that cannot be blocked due to the stun lock. Blocking is also great for getting away from people, just as long as they're all in front of you. It doesn't matter how many saber users there are. If you've got, say, Maul, Kylo Ren, and Vader all in front of you, trying to choke you, trying to throw their sabers at you, you know, being a pain in the ass, they won't be able to do anything, so long as you've got stamina at least. And Rey has a surprising amount of stamina, especially if your insight's up. That increases it a little bit. Once the stamina's run out, you can just throw in a few dodges, which grant you invincibility frames, and then once your stamina's up again, you can block again. Now, this is a really great way of staying alive as the target if you're outnumbered. Now, doing this when you're not the target is probably not the best idea. You're wasting time and you're not assisting your team. Blocks and dodges also completely nullify force powers and knockback abilities such as Han's Detonite Charge. They will just not do anything to you, although during a block, force powers will temporarily stun you, but only for a very brief moment, and chances are they're at range if they're using force powers anyway, so you're not at much risk in that case. Now, to counter blocking, what you generally need to do is dodge behind someone. I've seen a few people on Reddit claim that blocking is completely infallible, that there's nothing you can do to it, and that the combat system is worse than the first games because you at least had a block breaker in that. But it's just not true, because you can quite reliably get behind people and attack them when they're blocking. The trick is just to be using a high sensitivity. That way you'll always be able to track them. Rey has an extra way of getting through blocks, and as I mentioned earlier, that's in the form of Dash Strike. It will completely smash through a person's block and then knock them on their fucking ass, which is very, very helpful. It does a respectable amount of damage as well, so keep that in mind. That is the reason I think Rey is probably the best saber duelist. Just make sure you cancel it. Many people, they use Dash Strike and end up running into walls, because if you don't cancel it, it goes on for quite a long time, which is handy in some cases, because it means you can just steamroll lines of people. But to effectively use Rey, you want to be just constantly making use of it against single targets. As soon as you knock them down, you press dodge, which will cancel the Dash Strike, and then while they're still not down, you can hammer in some hits. Now, I also want to elaborate on Insight a little bit, because it's also another thing that makes Rey amazing. It lets you set up ambushes, because when you enable it, you can see everyone on the map through walls. It gives you wall hacks, and also grants wall hacks to everyone on your team, which is just insane, especially in Galactic Assault, but I won't go too much into that because this is primarily a guide for Heroes vs Villains. But yeah, it's most useful for setting up Dash Strike ambushes. So you'll see someone coming around a corner, that's when you go in for the strike, you knock them down, they didn't see you coming, and they're probably panicking at this point. You can get a few hits in while they're on the ground. When they get up, they'll probably just spam a few attacks that you can block. They'll be stunned, you can punish them. At this point they're probably nearly dead. So yeah, as you can see, having that kind of element of surprise is a massive advantage. Her final very useful ability is Mind Trick. Now, I'd say the primary usage for this is retreating. Against skilled players, Mind Trick is essentially useless, in all honesty. I say that because dodging just negates it. If someone's dodging, those invincibility frames are going to give you hell. You're not going to be able to do anything to them throughout the duration of your Mind Trick. It does not prevent them from dodging. They can still do it, but it'll just be sort of reversed. But they're still going to get those invincibility frames. So it's best used when you're overwhelmed. You're trying to get away from a bunch of people, say, as the target. You can just aim towards them. That's something important to note. It's not in a whole circle around you, it's a cone in front of you. So aim towards them and activate Mind Trick, and they won't be able to sprint, and they'll probably accidentally be heading the wrong way until they get their bearings. So that gives you the perfect opportunity to get away. Mind Trick is also Boba Fett's bane. As Rey, you are his primary counter. Han is probably the secondary one, since his airburst ability is able to knock Boba out of the air. But even if he's knocked out of the air, he can still immediately jetpack right back up. However, Rey's Mind Trick prevents this. If he's on the ground while Mind Trick, he will not be able to get up into the air. It's important to note he can still dodge, which is pretty problematic. But if you have any allies around you, say a blaster ally, then that Boba is utterly done for. He is not going anywhere. Okay, I thought I'd finish up over this miscellaneous Palpatine gameplay with some general tips. Rey is extremely mobile and agile, and you always need to be trying to use this to your advantage. She can dodge a lot, and her sprint is very fast, so if you're ever in a situation where you're outnumbered, or you do not have the element of surprise or any kind of numerical advantage, what you can do is just leg it out of there. If you keep spamming ult and getting in those invincibility frames, there's probably nothing they can do, especially if you're using cover to your advantage and sort of juking people around. You will be more or less immune. You can head around, escape, regenerate your health, and then get back into combat in a more advantageous position, hopefully with the assistance of insight. You don't always have to run away in these situations though. Dash Strike gives you a lot of offensive capability, and if you start by retreating and then funnel your opponents into a neat line, you can quickly spin around. This is another reason why high sensitivities are a great idea when playing a saber hero, and knock them all over and do a shit ton of damage. Now if you have the card that increases the Dash Strike damage with each enemy hit, then this is especially amazing, so I would definitely recommend that. Alright, with all that covered, I think there's nothing else to add. This is the first video of this type I've ever made, so I do apologise if it wasn't perfect. Let me know what you thought in the comments, whether it was useful or not. I'd really like to know. I'm not entirely sure if the tips I gave are common knowledge by now or not, but judging from what I've seen, they're not. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you out there and we can do some saber duels.